This is Danny Gould with the Gould team selling Silicon Valley. Welcome everyone to another Silicon Valley market snapshot for the third week here in December of 2019. In a different location today. We're still at the Silver Creek office here, but I decided to switch it up a little bit. All the conference rooms are taken up right now, so I got a bit of an audience here in the bullpen. Say hello to everyone. That's Michael, that's Vicky, and back there in the corner, that's Lucy. Say hi, Luce. Morning. Okay. All right, everyone. Well, let's get started. You know, for the third week in a row now, we're seeing the same trend over and over and over again. And when I first called it out 3 weeks ago, I thought I may have jumped the gun last week because we were seeing things trending back in the opposite direction. But now things are trending again positively for sellers in the Santa Clara County. And we're going to go into what that looks like in terms of the numbers and in terms of the heat maps. But what you guys really need to understand is that right now, from a very high level perspective, the demand in Silicon Valley has remained consistent year over year. What's changed is the inventory levels, and that's going to cause, or put pressure rather, on home prices in Santa Clara County as we head into Q1 of 2020. And if that demand remains consistent and the inventory levels don't rise too high, we could see some of that pressure on prices carry forward into the spring market and into Q2 of 2020. But nothing's for certain yet, and definitely this is something that we need to keep our eyes on as we move into the first quarter of 2020. And of course, if you've been watching these videos for any period of time, this is not something that's new. I've talked about this in great detail, how really the best time to capitalize on the appreciation schedule that's set to occur here in 2020 in Silicon Valley is in the first 2 months of 2020. If you're not doing that, and if you're not selling your home in the first 2 months, you might not be in the best position to capitalize on that pretty much guaranteed at this point appreciation that's set to occur, competitive market conditions that are bound to take place in the next 30 to 60, perhaps 90 days. So without further ado, let's look at the heat maps right now. Active listings, I know there's a little bit of glare. Let's see if we can get some of this in focus, but really, aside from Saratoga and Evergreen, which are experiencing very nominal increases in inventory, you're pretty much seeing double-digit decreases in inventory all across the county in the central part of Santa Clara County. No heat maps today for the Mid-Peninsula or South County. We're really just focused on central Santa Clara as we move into to the later parts of this year. On the flip side, though, we have pendings, which are up drastically in these areas here, aside from Los Gatos, as well as Almaden, Cambrian. Sorry, Almaden is up, but we got Los Gatos, Cambrian, and Santa Teresa in the red, as well as Milpitas. So some of the areas here, pendings are up, and that's good news for you if you're a home seller. But what we really need to understand is that we're comparing this to last year's market. These are year-over-year numbers. And if we look at the numbers as a whole in Santa Clara County, what you'll find is something that doesn't really match up with what we're seeing here on the heat maps. And I'll explain, but when you look at, wrong chart, but when you look at the pending sales here in the single-family sector year over year, we have 648 pending single-family homes. This time last year, we had 646. So essentially even. Where we have a little bit more pending activity is in the condo and townhome sector at 285 in comparison to 249 of last year. I know that's really hard to see, guys. I know it's very hard to see, but just bear with me. This is just a one-time thing. But what you notice is that if we look at the year-over-year change in the condo and townhome sector, we're looking at 14% year over year, but flatline in the single family sector. So what that tells us is that right now, pendings or demand in the Silicon Valley marketplace has remained fairly consistent year over year. Now that's in comparison to last year. Let's look at how we shape up to 2017 and 2016. Now, There are definitely less pendings when we compare it to 2017 at this point and 2016. So, what does that mean? What does that mean? Well, a couple things that come to mind. The first thing that comes to mind is that we're still rebounding from the not the drastic fall, but from the fall over the last 18 months. Because for the first time in 18 months, 3 weeks ago, we flip-flopped where there was more pending sale. There were more pending sales than actives in the single-family sector. And that is going to continue to play itself out over the next 6 to 12 months. And really, there for the longest time was a surge in demand, and now we've kind of evened off, right? We've talked about this in previous videos, but it's really this concept of this neutralization of the market, this stability that's coming over the Silicon Valley marketplace. And so when you measure the year-over-year numbers, I mean, that's a fairly consistent trend. If you're seeing that the demand this year is equal to where it was last year, then we can assume, all things being equal, all economic factors remaining the same, that we can expect a similar amount of demand heading into Q1. So we should see that same demand spike that we saw at the beginning of Q1 last year. But the problem is that there was a surge in demand, but there was a much higher surge in inventory. So as long as the inventory levels continue to remain suppressed, I mean, we're looking at, if you see here, we're at 635 active single families. This time last year we had 934. Think about that. I mean, think about that. We're like literally 50% lower than we were last year. That's wrong. 33% lower than we were at this time last year. That is a huge drop in active inventory. And as long as those inventory levels continue to remain suppressed, we should experience appreciation. We should experience a competitive market in the first 30 to 60 days in 2020. And should those inventory levels remain suppressed, we could see the prices here continue to climb in the later part of the spring market in 2020. Now, the only thing, and we've talked about this before, the market's really reactionary, right? And so what tends to happen is that sellers react to what they're seeing on the news. They react to what they're seeing around them. And so my gut tells me is that there's not enough difference, there's not enough delta between the demand and the active inventory to maintain an active seller's market for a really long time. Because at some point, a lot of sellers are going to say, oh my goodness, it's the same thing, it's reactionary, right? They say, oh my goodness, I see Sally's home just sold down the street with multiple offers and she got like $50,000 over list price. I should put my home on the market. And that's going to happen in multiples. And then we see a surge in inventory heading into the later part of the spring market. So do not hesitate. Do not think that this whole spring is the best time to sell your home applies to you. Take the data, take the knowledge that you're learning here and act on it, because you're not going to have a huge window of opportunity this year. The delta between pendings and actives are just not there. The market's in your favor right now. The numbers are in your favor, but how long that remains the case is completely predicated upon the reactionary behavior of the market and whether or not we have actual suppressed inventory levels right now, which clearly the data shows one thing, but it's another thing if the sellers in the marketplace actually decide to act on that. And so to wrap this up, I was actually on Facebook the other day, and I came across a post by my friend Grace Sang, and I'm going to put Grace on the spot here. She's a great agent out of the Intero Los Gatos office. And I saw this post, and I thought I'd share it with all of you, because it's one thing to talk conceptually, and it's another thing to really go into the dirt and figure out, is this concept applying or applicable to what's actually going on in the marketplace? And what happens, guys? Let's just talk about basic, simple economic theory. Supply, demand. What happens when supply goes down and demand remains consistent? What happens to prices? They go up, right? They go up. And how do prices tend to go up here in Silicon Valley, right? It's through competition, because competition drives price. And so in order for a home to or in order for any place to appreciate, there needs to be a consistent, steady stream of multiple offer situations where there are bidding wars and homes are getting bid over asking price. That's how, over a 2, 3, 4 month period, you see a consistent, steady appreciation schedule. So I saw Grace's post and I said, okay, we should talk about this on the Snapshot, because it's important for all of you that are watching this video to see that it's happening right before your eyes. Grace saying, my home has 95 disclosures out and received 35 offers this week and sold over 1.5 million. I'm offering this piece of insider information you are not getting on the newspaper yet. Do you want to wait until the rest of the world wakes up, or do you want to act now before the bidding wars heat up? And then she goes on to say, this is my number and everything, and I love you, Grace. 35 offers? Think about that. 35 offers on a property. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be the case for every property out there, but this home's in 95129. It's obviously a very desirable area, and it's right in that meat and potatoes price range, under 1.8. So there's a lot of people that are going to be actively looking for these kinds of properties in the next 30, 60, 90 days. And if you're a home seller, this should be great news to you, because this is going to be not the norm, but multiple offer situations are going to become more and more frequent heading into the first 30, 60, 90 days of 2020. And she posted this last week. So December, what was it? 7th, 8th, 9th? It's happening, people. And I've been talking about it for months now. If you've been watching these Snapshot videos for any period of time, you'll know that this is something that I warned you about. I told you this was going to happen, and now it's happening. So are you going to continue to wait, or are you going to act? Don't be on the fence. These videos are designed to help you get on one side of the fence. Either you're in or you're out. Are you a seller? Capitalize on the market. Are you a buyer? Use this information, because in 3 or 4 months, the homes that you're looking at are going to be more expensive. Do you really want to do that to yourself? Honestly, that's not my decision to make. But use this information and make the decision that's best for you and for your family. This is Danny Gould with the Gould team, selling Silicon Valley, and I will catch all of you in the next video.